5 convicts who died in the courtroom. When you think of a courthouse, you tend to think of metal detectors and armed guards. But there was a time when security was not as stringent. And sometimes, security isn't enough to keep weapons out of all courtrooms. In this video, we will discuss 5 convicts who died in the courtroom. Number 5. Jitendra Goji. An Indian gangster and the head of the infamous Goji gang, was up to much more than just starting fights on school property. He was also linked to numerous murders. This guy is going to discover the hard way that what goes around comes around. Goji was facing a long list of charges, including 19 counts of murder and extortion. The law had caught up with Goji 3 times, but each time he managed to escape custody and was soon at the top of the list of Delhi's most wanted gangsters, thanks to an $8,000 reward. The police got him again, and then they let their guard down since they'd finally caught him and had the evidence. But that was a fatal mistake on September 24, 2021. Famed folk singer Harshita Duvia had witnessed one of his murders. A political party leader, rival gang members, a school teacher, and numerous gang wars, leaving bystanders dead. Goji was taken to the Rovini District Court in New Delhi for a hearing on one of his criminal cases, shortly after 2 men who appeared to be attorneys entered the room. However, they weren't attorneys, and they weren't there to assist Goji in breaking free. Instead, a rival gang had hired them to kill Goji once and for all. They pulled out guns and started shooting minutes after they entered. Number 4. Laurent Anthony Ball. Speaking of dangerous men, foreigner Laurent Anthony Ball was shot and killed by the gangsters in the aftermath of a police shootout with them. 3 gangsters were left dead. On the evening of December 27, 2001, Ron Ball shot and killed 27-year-old Eamon Rogers before fleeing with the man's Rolex watch, which helped investigators link him to the crime when they apprehended him. But before we get to that, let's talk about Laurent Anthony Ball, number 2 among criminals. Ball isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, but that didn't make him any less dangerous. Ball was held at Milwaukee County Jail as he waited for trial. He started to plot an escape. He planned to switch identification wristbands with a prisoner set to be released, but he bled too much and an informant told the deputies. Ball was moved into solitary confinement with his first plan thwarted. He started plotting something more sinister. But the police were up to his tricks, and when the trial began, Ball was brought into the courtroom wearing a stun belt, handcuffs, and shackles. But when the verdict came back on May 29, 2002, for some reason, Ball was brought into the courtroom without the stun belt, handcuffs, or shackles. The jury read out the verdict. Ball was found guilty. Suddenly, pandemonium broke out. While running across the room, jumping into the jury box, and throwing himself through the window or trying to. Unfortunately for him, the windows remained unbroken, sealing him in. Members of the jury scattered in panic as 2 deputies tackled him to the ground, but Ball grabbed hold of one of their guns and shot twice, hitting one deputy in the leg. The other bailiff grabbed the slide of the semi-automatic pistol, keeping Ball from firing again while also trying desperately to keep his hold of Ball. Lead Detective Alfonso Morales was in court to hear the verdict, which said, "We have to act now, or we're going to lose this." He jumped under the prosecution table and fired several shots at Ball. He wasn't supposed to receive the death penalty, but he signed up for it with the stun he used. Number 3. David Paradiso. This wasn't the first time a quick-witted detective had saved a life in court. The previous time, the victim, David Paradiso, was a judge. David Paradiso's mother was driving her son and his girlfriend, 21-year-old Eileen Pelt. The two had only been dating for 2 weeks when a scream tore through the car, and she watched in horror as her son Stead fell. He then forced his mom to drive out of town to dump her body. He was later arrested after a high-speed chase. The trial began in Judge Cinder Fox's Stockton courtroom. The defense contended that Paradiso was under the influence of drugs when he killed Pelt. Paradiso took the stand and claimed that he killed Pelt because he thought she would kill him. But on the second day, when he took the stand, his story changed. He claimed that she deserved to die and went into horrifying details that shocked the courtroom. His answers to questions seemed completely out of the ordinary. It seemed as though he began to make comments about the person or girl he had killed, and that she deserved to die. Judge Fox decided to call a recess while the jurors were filing out when Paradiso stood up at the witness stand. Both the bailiff and his attorney yelled at him to sit. He was told to do so twice by a deputy. I then yelled at him to sit down instead. Belt's family was visibly upset and stormed out of the courtroom. Paradiso's mother stood up and yelled that her son shouldn't have been on the stand. Stopping a convict from attacking someone is one thing, but sometimes the person they want dead is closer than anyone thinks. Number 4. Paradiso backed up against the wall behind the witness chair, pulled something out of his pocket, and lunged to the judge, lifting her to the bench and starting to strike the judge with it. Everyone rushed to help her, but Detective Eric Bradley stopped the chaos 3 times. Number 2. Michael Marin. If there's one person on this list who you wouldn't expect to see, it's Michael Marin. And what he did in court was just as startling. Michael Marin was charged with arson of an occupied structure on June 28, 2012. Marin's son received an email from his father informing him how to handle his affairs if things went wrong in court and where to find his car. Nothing crazy about that on a typical day, right? Except Michael had been pronounced dead hours earlier. So who sent the email? What was in the car? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The story of Michael Marin started decades earlier. Marin was a Yale-educated lawyer who amassed a fortune trading on Wall Street. He led a lavish lifestyle and was known for his expensive taste, collecting Picasso sketches, driving a Rolls-Royce, flying his very expensive plane, and a 6,600 square foot, $2.55 million mansion to boot. And in July 2009, Marin's mansion lit up in flames, and that was not the most astonishing thing that happened that day. It was Marin telling the news crew how he managed to climb out the window wearing a scuba tank and using a rope ladder. If you think that was a strange thing to slip into when your house is burning, you're not the only one. The fire officials and arson investigators were suspicious as well. In addition, Marin's prized possessions, 18 etchings by Pablo Picasso, were all out of the house and in a safe. But why would this millionaire burn down his home? It all came down to money. Marin's fortune had dwindled, and he couldn't keep up with his mortgage. He had $42,700 in his account and $50 in his 401k. A plan to raffle his house through a charity fundraiser had failed, so Marin turned to arson, hoping for an insurance payout. After being detained and charged on June 28, 2012, 53-year-old Marin was found guilty and sentenced to 7 to 21 years in prison. However, Marin decided to take a quicker route after learning of his conviction. Appearing upset, he covered his face with his hands, turning red, then took a swig from a drink in his bag and swallowed once more. Minutes later, his defense attorney was helping him wipe his face, and seconds after that, he convulsed and collapsed due to a heart attack. What no one saw was that Marin had taken a cyanide pill. Minutes later, paramedics arrived and began chest compressions. The former millionaire was found dead in his car, and police discovered a can of cyanide he had brought with him before the trial. This was a dramatic end to a dramatic life. Number 1. Jason Berkowitz. While some prisoners may believe they must take something to end their lives, others, like Jason Binkowitz, will stop at nothing to avoid serving their sentences. He seems to have a personal vendetta against Thanksgiving. Binkowitz was charged with 2 counts of felony assault and 1 count of attempted murder during Thanksgiving 2015. While family and friends bonded over turkey and mashed potatoes, a drunk Binkowitz stumbled to a new townhome in Ohio and shot the homeowner in the head and chest. Thankfully, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, he survived. Binkowitz was later arrested and charged. Binkowitz was offered a 5-year plea deal, but he turned it down. He pleaded not guilty because of insanity, but in court, Binkowitz claimed that he was at the house to buy drugs when he fired in self-defense. The stories didn't add up, and it was no surprise that Berkowitz was found guilty. The judge spoke about his extensive criminal history before sentencing him to 13 years, but Binkowitz had a plan, and his ankles, which hadn't been shackled because they were so swollen, would help him. As the 42-year-old was being escorted out of the courtroom by a deputy, he ran away. The deputy followed after him, but only managed to get a grip of Binkowitz's prison shirt before he threw himself over the building's 3rd-floor banister. Screams filled the courtroom as emergency responders rushed to the scene. But it was too late. A 100-foot fall is not something you could easily walk away from. And for Jason Binkowitz, there would be no talking at all. If you watched this far, please share your thoughts in the comments box below for more fascinating subjects. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.